Today we're going to be tying the pink and yellow EP bunker, a go-to fly for saltwater fishing here at Postfly. Stop your thread base less than a quarter of the way down the shank. Then we're going to take our red yarn, split a small section of it off. Then we're going to work it around the shank and center tie it in. Then take the forward facing section and push it back, also working it around the shank, and then tie that in. Now we're going to take our pink fibers and center tie them on the top of the shank. Make a handful of wraps over the fibers. Then we're going to grab a clump of yellow, approximately the same size as the pink, and we're going to center tie them in below the shank. Hold them underneath and tie them in. Now take the yellow forward-facing strands and wrap them around the opposite side of the shank underneath, and then at the same time pull back the pink. Then capture all the fibers with a handful of tight thread wraps. Now we're going to repeat the previous step. Center tying in a clump of pink fibers on top of the hook shank, just in front of the other clumps we previously tied in. Then grab an equal clump of yellow and center tie them in below the hook shank. Pinch it up tightly against the shank as you tie it in. This will help keeping it from twisting, but it will twist a little bit no matter what. Just make sure you straighten it out before you finish tying it in. Now separate the two different colors of forward-facing fibers. Then pull them back and tie them in. You can also use either a straw or a hollowed out cheap pen to push all the fibers back by sliding it over the eye of the hook, and it will force all the fibers back and make it a little bit easier to hold onto them. Now we're going to tie in a small pinch of angel's hair on either side of the shank. This will add just a touch of flash and a little bit of lateral line. Take your small clump of angel's hair and press it tightly against the side of the fly, and just make a couple wraps to tie it in. We're going to tie in one more section of pink fiber on top of the hook shank. Hold it tightly as you center tie it in. Then take an equally sized clump of yellow fiber and repeat this step below the hook shank. Pinching it tightly to the underside of the shank, making a thread wrap, capturing it in place. Then quickly orientate it before finishing tying it in. Now separate the two different colors and pull them back. Hold them in place as you finish tying them in and building up a small head behind the eye of the hook. Now we're going to use a small section of leader material as our weed guard. Hold it underneath the shank of the hook and tie it in. Then you can finish building up the head of the fly at the same time as you finish tying it in. Then trim it to about the hook point. If you don't like your flies to have weed guard, you can just totally skip this step and not attach it at all. Make a handful more of thread wraps to make sure the weed guard is tightly secured to the bottom of the shank. Now you can throw in a whip finish and then cut your bobbin free. You can also take this time to trim up any crazy fibers hanging out around the eye of the hook, and then remove the fly from the vise and set it on the table and brush it out, removing any fibers that may be trapped or loose. Take your scissors and cut the shape of the fly. It doesn't have to be perfect. We'll come back to trimming it up to its perfect shape later on. Take your Sharpie and almost dot the lines into the fly. If you try to draw them on like you traditionally would, it'll just pull all the fibers and it won't look quite right. When you flip it over, you're going to see the lines bleeding through from the other side. Just dot over the exact same lines. Now that we got the fly back in the vise, we're going to finish trimming it to shape. You can make it look as perfect as you want or as shaggy as you want. Now we're going to attach our 3D eyes. I like to take my bodkin and put just a little bit of super glue on the tip and wipe it across the backside of the eyes, and then press them into place. Adding the super glue will help hold them on and just make your fly that much more durable. Using your bodkin allows you to apply just the right amount of super glue to the backside of the 3D eyes. The reason this is important is if you put too much on, it will make a mess and the eyes will end up stuck to your fingertips instead of the fly. Now that you have your eyes attached, you can take the time to add some UV resin over your thread wraps or over the eyes if you want. If not, this fly is ready to fish. And that's how you tie the pink and yellow bunker.